hi everybody. Thank you for coming and thank you for inviting me to come and speak to you. I was just chatting with Emma before, so if anyone's got any questions, I think you can press the button to raise your hand or just turn your microphone on or whatever. I don't mind being interrupted, so just shout if you want to ask anything. That's absolutely fine. And thank you for my introduction, Emma. So yeah, so this is my job really, is I help people. I go around people's homes and provide some emotional support and some practical support, because it's when somebody close to us dies and we experience a bereavement, there's so much to sort through. So we're trying to process our feelings and our emotions, but also there's all this practical stuff to do. So often there's lots of, you know, paperwork and things like that to deal with. And there's also physical items that need sorting out. And then processing our feelings about those items, which will often have, you know, bring up emotions for us or have memories attached to them. So it's sort of a whole extra layer actually that it adds to our experience of bereavement. And I really like the name of this platform of Untangle, because that's really what we have to do. Some of you may have seen this kind of image that is often used to talk about bereavement, where it's like a knotted up ball of wool or twine or something, and it's really, you're trying to tease out the different strands, and we talk about it at Cruise in our bereavement training, about trying to untangle all of our feelings. Everything's really mixed up together, you know, just about everything that's been happening. So sometimes before we have a chance to actually fully process our experience, we've also had to do these practical tasks. So the kind of sensible way we would do it is we would work through our feelings and then we'd deal with all that practical stuff. But actually in reality, that's often not what happens. So is that someone asking a question or just a little just a little noise? So sometimes this can be really difficult because we're not in our usual place in terms of our mental health and our well-being, because we're in that, you know, grieving space. Decisions that used to be quite easy and straightforward now become really difficult and really hard to kind of work out what do I think about this, how do I feel about this, and that's just can be quite daunting. And so some of the things people describe, you know, why can it feel so difficult, and what does grieving feel like for us, and why sometimes does that then create complications with all the physical stuff and items that come along, is this kind of empty feeling that can't be filled. And a longing and yearning, you know, for the person that we've lost, for the life we used to have, the interactions we used to have. You know, it can feel like a physical emptiness inside. And sometimes we will look to the person's belongings or our own belongings to kind of try and fill that space up. Especially if we might be feeling kind of unsafe or anxious, sort of a bit on edge and not sure what's going on. And we know that going through grief can cause sometimes confusion, you know, memory issues, problems with focusing, what we call executive functioning. So being able to plan, prioritize, remember things, finish a task. All of those executive functions are affected when we're grieving, and that obviously can then result in your home sometimes getting a bit chaotic as well, and difficulty then with decision making for some of those bigger decisions. And grief can be quite isolating sometimes. You know, some people don't always know how to support us, so they kind of back off when we need it the most, and that includes with sorting out, you know, the physical items as well. So sometimes we will surround ourselves with stuff. It can feel like we're keeping the world out or kind of blocking ourselves in, almost like a nest. Sometimes people I work with have kind of built almost like a little barrier around the area where they sit, just as almost to feel safe and secure there. Sometimes there can be some guilt and shame, either around the fact that we've kept all this stuff, or around the actual death itself. Guilt is a very frequently raised as one of the most difficult feelings that we have after someone's died. Sometimes because of actions or words that we regret from when they were here, or because we regret things that we didn't say or do. And sometimes they're items from their home or things we've inherited can bring up those memories and those feelings and increase that guilt. Sometimes shopping can be a distraction from our feelings. So we hear about, retail therapy, but actually it doesn't help us much at all. We know that, really, but in the moment it can take our mind off the difficult feelings that we're having. And sometimes we're just trying to keep ourselves busy. We call this a kind of restorative actions, where we're, I'll sort the house out and I'll do this and I'll sort my paperwork. But sometimes that can be, starting a new hobby, and then I need all the stuff that goes with that new hobby, and regularly sort of shopping, and bringing more things into the home, almost like a busy task to be doing. And that can come sometimes with like aspirational stuff. So I'm going to, build this new furniture unit, and I'm going to do some knitting for the local hospital. And so I buy all the things to do it, but then don't quite get around to doing it. And then that can build up. If we're thinking about items that have been inherited or brought back to the home from the person that's died, there might be some emotional attachment belonging to those items, the memories that are brought up. There might be photographs, and there might be a feeling that, you're now responsible for those items. You're the custodian. So this is passed down through generations, and now it's mine to be responsible for and maintain and look after for, ever. And that can feel really difficult if you actually don't have space for it, or it's an item of furniture that doesn't match any of your other furniture. But those emotions can feel quite strong around that. Sometimes people are having such a difficult time that not only does the home end up in a bit of chaos, but actually themselves. So we know sometimes when we're grieving that we don't feel like eating or washing or going out socializing, things like that. And when you've filled up your home as well, actually looking after yourself can be really difficult. So, if you've got extra, you've brought loads of extra crockery home with you, then can you actually cook a healthy meal in your kitchen? Can you sit at the table? So sometimes it will be that we already have a lot of stuff in our home, and this is adding to it. And sometimes a home that's not cluttered at all will suddenly become really overwhelming because we've brought all this stuff back with us because we couldn't let it go. So sometimes there's ways in which somebody dying can impact how much stuff we have in our own homes. So that might be that we've inherited, their treasure, their most valuable possessions that they've left and particularly wanted us to have. So now we're looking after those items, and we feel responsible for them. And even if we don't want them and we do feel like we can get rid of them, where do they go? We can't just send them to the charity shop or chuck them out. We feel this responsibility that they've got to go somewhere worthy of the person. And sometimes, it can be our complete responsibility, on your own. You might have to clear out a whole home, or you might be doing it with a family member. And that can cause tension sometimes. People don't always agree on what to do with certain things. You'll get one family member that says, "Oh, just chuck it all in the skip. I don't want any of it. No one wants it. It's rubbish." And then you get another family member that says, "Oh my God, every single item in here is precious." Sometimes I work with people and it's, a birthday card with you know, somebody's handwriting in it, so they can't get rid of it because that's the handwriting of the person that's not here anymore, so they feel like they have to keep it, and that's the last book they're reading and their bookmark's still halfway in. You know, how do we get rid of items like that? How can we let those items go? And different members of the family will have very different feelings about that, and that can cause kind of another layer then of distress and difficulty. And sometimes people are just a bit ambivalent about it, whatever, I'm not bothered. And that can be really hard to deal with as well. So if we're the person that's having to do this big clear, you know, maybe there's a time limit on that. Sometimes there's a deadline, you know, if you have to hand back a tenancy, right, there's a 3-bedroom house, you need to have it empty in a month's time. That's really difficult and very high pressure. Equally, you know, if there's a financial pressure that the house needs to be sold, so it needs to be emptied, you know, dealing with that on top of the grief, sometimes it's just like the final, you know, it's the last thing that anyone can be doing. It can be really difficult, very high pressure. And we can be really worried about making mistakes. So like getting rid of the wrong thing and then regretting it later. So that can end up then with just keeping everything because not being able to bear the thought of having that regret in the future. Especially when you're not in a great frame of mind for making decisions, you know, you'll be more concerned that you're going to make the wrong decision. And it can feel sometimes, if we do feel like we're going to let go of things, does that feel a bit disrespectful to the person they belong to? You know, is it wrong to get rid of their stuff? Does it feel like we're saying we don't care about them anymore, or we don't care about their experiences? You know, logically, we know that, of course, it's not that we don't care, but emotionally, it can just feel so difficult to let go in that way. And, you know, I still love this person, but I don't need to keep all of their books and all of their clothes and all of their furniture. It doesn't take away from my memory of them, my respect for them, and our experiences together. And that can be really hard to separate those feelings out. The logical brain doesn't always win over the emotional side of things. So I mentioned before about, you know, sometimes we've got our own clutter in the house. So maybe our house is already a bit busy. So that might be things, you know, really common things that lots of us would have in the home, you know, maybe some food in the cupboard that's a bit past its best, you know, the like jar of allspice from, you know, 1995 or something. Like we all end up with these things kind of building up. Clothes maybe that don't fit or you haven't worn for quite a while, but you haven't really made the decision about getting rid of. Paperwork, and that can be anything. It can be, you know, magazines, newspapers, children or grandchildren's artwork that, you know, they bring home. It could be to do with running a business, owning properties, but paperwork is quite a big kind of clutter hotspot and can be really difficult for people to keep on top of anyway. And then with the extra layer of grief on top, having a clear enough mind to sort through all your, you know, your tax forms, that goes to the bottom of the pile of priorities quite often. Photographs, not so much now. I think now a lot of our photographs are digital, aren't they? But that can still feel really overwhelming. Knowing you've got 2,000 photographs on your phone isn't necessarily less stressful than having 2,000 photographs in a box. They're still there in the back of your mind. Books, we have lots of book collections with people I work with. And also I think craft and hobby items, you know, some of it's aspirational and it doesn't get done, but a lot of it does. You know, a lot of people are busy at home, really creative, but all that takes up space. So then when we have to bring in some more stuff, that can really add to a maybe already busy home that might not be completely organised in the first place. So dealing with items from a loved one, where do you actually start? Well, And so I have had a few like informal interviews with people in preparation for today's session, with people who have had to deal with either the estate of family, or helping a family to do so. And so what's sort of overwhelmingly frequently came up is about where does the stuff actually go to? So even if you make the decision that you don't want all of this furniture or crockery, or so one was a collection of brass off the fireplace, you know, all the little things as well as the big things, where then does it actually go to if you don't want to keep it and you've only got a few weeks to sort it all out? So there's a factor about, often, you know, nowadays we're a lot more conscious about the environment, so we don't want to just chuck everything in a skip or landfill. One, because it, you know, it doesn't feel respectful to the person in the home that we're sorting through, but also, you know, that has an environmental impact, and if we can, you know, rehome, reuse, recycle things, that's better, you know, for everybody. So some of the suggestions that came from some of the people I spoke to, you know, from their lived experience, was one family had invited actually some friends and family to the home. It was his mother that had died. So invited friends and family round and just invited everybody to just take a little keepsake or something. This was with the brass on the, you know, if everyone wants like one of her little ornaments from the fireplace, or, you know, some of the crockery, blankets, just things that remind them of her, and that would be too difficult to kind of go, oh, would so and so like this, or I'll have to phone them and check. And actually, you know, just everyone come round, we'll all have a cup of tea and a chat and reminisce, and I'd really like you all to take a little memory home with you. And they felt really happy that they'd done that, and that she would have liked that, you know, she would have been pleased that that's what happened. Somebody also talked about at the funeral, at the service, they'd made a table and they'd put photographs and keepsakes and little things that they, again, invited everybody that was at the service to come and, you know, maybe there were some photos of them together when they were children, that kind of thing, to come and help themselves and take something, a little memento. So that's a kind of nice sort of, you know, community and supportive way to remember the person and feels respectful to them. For bigger items and more volume of items, there are some places you can give stuff away. So there are apps, there's Freegal, is one that's quite popular, where you just take a photograph and, you know, everything's being given away, you're not selling anything on there. Facebook, you can give things away, and Nextdoor is another app where you can get rid of things for free, but you also might have local groups. So I know a lot of people have like a local WhatsApp group for their areas. That kind of thing might be helpful, and it means, you know, someone's coming to you to collect the items and take them away, and you haven't got to do kind of all the physical work there. So in terms of, from my point of view, for working with people decluttering and organising, I try and find creative ways and places to give things away to. So often schools, particularly primary schools, will be really pleased with lots of donations of craft stuff, paper, books, that kind of thing. Care homes are often very grateful for craft items as well, and sometimes clothes. Things that maybe, if people haven't got family members, you know, bringing stuff in for them, toiletries. I did, a local care home was setting up like a nail bar in the care home there, so donating lots of hand creams, nail varnish, things like that, was greatly received. So just trying to find places that feel, you know, in honour of the person that's died, that their things are going on to help somebody else, can feel really positive. Other places are like theatre companies. Sometimes they need stuff for props. They might need some, you know, unusual bits of furniture, musical instruments, things like that. I recently donated a guitar to a school for children with extra learning needs, where to have their music lessons. So they were taking some music equipment. So it can be, you can feel like quite good about where you're passing things on to. And there's lots of people who are looking out for kind of furniture that needs, you know, upcycling, bit of repainting, reupholstering, that kind of thing. Because one of the difficulties with, for instance, soft furnishings is that if it doesn't have the fire label on, charities can't take it to resell it, but it might still be in really good condition. So it's trying to find homes for those things, so that they don't end up going to landfill, really. If you want to, or you need to sell some items, there's the usual, you know, listing on Think Gumtree, Facebook, eBay. It's quite time consuming, and you don't always get perhaps the value that something would be worth. So I have worked with a few clients where a local auction house will come, and either they'll come and value the sort of the most valuable items and make an offer for those, or they often do house clearance, so they can pretty much take everything and then it gets sold and the fee is taken from the sale price, and then obviously whatever extra money there is will come back to you. So if you're on a really tight deadline, and you haven't got anywhere to store or take anything, that could be an option, is actually getting the auction house to take it. And then of course there's your normal, you know, house clearance companies, but you pay them and they take it all away. There's no sort of, you're not involved in the resale or anything in there. So I think probably from my experience, the auction house was that worked out quite well for my clients on those occasions. So selling items can feel quite daunting, and again it can feel a bit like, oh, is this a, you know, kind of respectful thing to do with their items, to be selling them on? So I've had a client that was talking about using the money actually to do something like in honor of the person. So it was, you know, her mum that had died, doing something that she would approve of. So something kind of an adventurous holiday, something like that, that it felt like the right thing to do then, to be able to sell the items instead of just storing them, and then use that money to do something and think, you know, I'm doing this and I'm thinking of you while I'm doing this. And that helped her then kind of process and feel like she was carrying on the memory and the legacy, you know, that her mum would have wanted her to go and try new things and you know, have those adventures. So that was a really positive thing for her to do. And, you know, whatever you do decide to do can feel really difficult and emotional. And if you just can't bring yourself to face this task straight away, then it might be paying for storage, which I generally don't recommend as, you know, a go-to thing to do. But these, you know, like easy storage or safe store, things like that, is, you know, and I do have, I've had friends and clients who've done this, have gone, do you know what, just put it all in a storage unit, I'll deal with it when I'm ready, I'm not ready yet, and then it can just wait until the person gets to a place where they feel like they can go and start just slowly doing a box here and there, or go and really go through it all at once. So I have had a client who actually had a container. They had enough land at the side of their house to have a container there at their home, so they put all their dad's stuff in there, and then when they were ready, then I went and we slowly worked through the container in that way. So that might be something that's an option if you've, you know, obviously there's a financial issue with that, is that not all of us can afford to pay for storing items, and that can make it quite difficult if we can't do that. So obviously I've mentioned a bit about working with clients, so just kind of introducing that idea that there is help available. So obviously Emma mentioned our Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers, which is quite a mouthful. So we just say APDO for short. Lots of our members are experienced in working with people who are bereaved, either may have done training like myself. When I started working primarily with people with hoarding behaviours, it became obvious really quickly that really complex grief was a major factor in their hoarding. And so that was nearly 7 years ago. I sort of went really quickly to Cruise to train with them and volunteer providing bereavement support with Cruise, and also train new bereavement volunteers. And I know that some of our other members at APDO have trained with Cruise as well. And you know, it's not kind of a magic, we'll come and sort everything out for you, but it is an understanding. I mean, we've all had experiences of bereavement, and it's kind of taking that and taking the understanding of some of the theory and understanding behind what we're going through to be able to support our clients, really. So nice and slow support at the pace that people need, not, you know, that's not the kind of work that you can rush. And sometimes there are days where we're just not doing, you know, I can't deal with that today, we'll do something else. And that's absolutely fine. And having some support there, so that can help both obviously the emotional side of things and the practical. So items will bring up memories, some happy, some sad, and having somebody there with you, sort of, you know, metaphorically holding your hand through that process and just being there, you know, not necessarily talking all about it, but just being there and holding the space while you do this really difficult task. And also to keep focused, because when something's really hard and we're on our own, we can sometimes just go, I'm not doing that, that's too difficult, I can't really deal with that right now. But when you've got some support there with you, that can really help kind of push through that barrier. And, you know, we know that we want to get this room back in order and be able to use the lounge properly again, but we just can't quite do it on our own. And so sometimes having that extra bit of support, and it might be, you know, if you've got a family member or friend that you can trust and who isn't too pushy and is there to sort of support you at your pace, that can be a really great way to do it, to have somebody there who you already, you know, have got that good rapport with. But we don't all have that, and sometimes, you know, we need some extra help, and there's no shame in asking for that at all. And sometimes it's just really important to talk through a decision, you know, if you're not sure about something, to just kind of say it out loud. You know, do I really need to keep this? Well, I'm not really sure, you know, there's this involved in this memory, and what am I going to do with it, and where would it go? And then just by having that conversation with somebody, you know, people I work with I don't really have to say anything. They just need to talk it through themselves and then come to a decision, and then I'm there to be like, okay, that's great, and now I can help you with the next bit. So some members will help you sell stuff as well, but what a lot of us do is we'll take stuff to the charity shop straight away, and that can be really useful, because sometimes we'll sort stuff out on our own, won't we, and leave it, and I'll just leave that in the porch, or I'll put it in the back of the car, and then it never quite makes it to the end place. So we can actually take stuff to the charity shops, or I take things, you know, if it's things like linens and towels, you know, they might go to an animal shelter, you know, taking things around to different places so that they can be reused as much as possible. So that's usually part of the service that our members provide. We also have members that are particularly interested in digital organising. So when I mentioned earlier about, you know, those 2,000 photographs on your phone, if there's 2,000 photographs on the phone of the person that has died, who's going to deal with all of that? How do we get them off the phone? How do we file them? What do we do? Are there duplicates? You know, am I just going to stick it in a cupboard and never look at it again? We do have members that can help sort out more of the electronic and digital side of things, you know, going through emails, ending subscriptions, all of that, take away all of that kind of stress. Because that's kind of a modern world problem, isn't it? We didn't used to have that to deal with, and now you have to close people's social media accounts. That's really complicated. All of their online subscriptions and things like that. So having maybe a bit of support with that, especially if it's not your kind of area of confidence, that can also be really helpful. And also photographs, I've mentioned a couple of times, just because we snap away on our phones all the time now, it's not such a big event to go and get your photos printed out anymore. So we do have photo organisers, and they can do both the physical sorting, if there's actual boxes of photographs, and also digital photo organising and making photo books and albums. But again, if that's something you are into, that can be a very nice therapeutic thing to do actually as part of the grieving process, is to go through the photos and make your own photo books and maybe share those with family. It's something for my partner's family, they did, his mum made each child up an album with some grandparents' photographs with them together, and gifted that all to them, which was a lovely thing to do. So if that's more your area of confidence maybe than even sorting out the physical stuff, you know, do what feels good and feels right for you and feels respectful. Now, if you feel very strongly, though, that you actually can't get rid of any items, if there's a very strong emotional attachment, or you're feeling very, very distressed at the thought of getting rid of anything, and it's impacting your own daily life, then it may be that this bereavement has triggered or exacerbated some hoarding behaviours. So it might be that specific bereavement counselling or psychological support can help your emotional well-being and then impact your home life. But it's just having an awareness of whether, is this just some stuff that I need to deal with, and I'm not quite ready, but I know I can get on with it, and I will, and it's not been a long period of time. Or actually, have we moved into a hoarding situation and I need to get some more professional support in? So to recognise whether it may be hoarding, this would be, you know, where key areas or entire rooms aren't usable. So it might be that it's not possible to use the bath or shower because there's been stuff stored in there. That it's not possible to cook a meal because there's things, you know, around the cooker and the worktops, or maybe even stuff on the kitchen floor, so it's not really safe to be in there. Is there stuff piled up maybe in front of either the back door or the front door so that access is limited? Is there stuff piled up on the stairs? So all those kind of factors can indicate that there is some hoarding concerns, and then this can impact on your life generally, because if you can't sleep well because there's a big pile of stuff on the bed, and you can't relax in the lounge because things keep falling over onto the one chair, you know, that's not already covered, or you can't get to, I had a lady that had her TV been on for 3 years because she couldn't get to the socket and she'd lost the remote control, so it had just been on for all that time. So there's no way for her to get to it to turn it off. So it can get to the point where actually your daily tasks and your overall well-being are really sort of significantly affected by physical items, and it can just feel too overwhelming really to deal with on your own. Sometimes where there's hoarding, you might spend a lot of time out of the house because you don't want to deal with it, or maybe, you know, the heating's broken and you can't get the boiler fixed, something like that, so you kind of, and you don't invite anyone round. Or sometimes people will spend all their time at home and doing this sort of sorting and resorting. You know, I'm organising this, I'm getting straight, but actually they're not getting rid of anything. So we call this churning through the items. It's just resorting the same things without ever letting go. And that anxiety about getting rid of something, and also maybe still bringing in more items. So if you can't get rid of anything, but you're still acquiring, that's when things really start to build up quite significantly, and can cause then issues with maintenance of the home. and that can be really challenging, especially if we have needs of our own. So often I'm working with clients who may have some physical challenges, so actually it's not really safe to have their home in that condition because they're at risk of falls, hospital admissions, like I say, no heating, hot water, not being able to cook. So it can affect not just your mental health, but your physical health as well, when we get into that situation. And then just coming up, so thinking more a bit about ourselves as well. Sometimes talking and thinking about these things can prompt us to look at our own stuff and think about our own mortality. So when we've been through the process of having lost some close family members, having to sort through their things and realizing how difficult that is, then we can sometimes look in and think, gosh, well, do I want to leave my stuff to other people to need to sort out? Or maybe do I need to start thinking about getting my house in order? And that can mean your digital stuff, your filing, paperwork, finances, as well as the physical things in your home. What is lurking in the loft? Is somebody going to have to go and sort all that out? Or, would it be a kindness to those family members or friends, whoever might be doing it, to not have to sort through things and think, oh goodness, what is this? Why did they keep that for so long? Why are there 7 Christmas trees up here? They just kept buying a new one and never got rid of the old one. That actually maybe it's quite empowering to get on top of that kind of stuff now while we can, and know that everything's in order and planned, I guess, as much as possible, really. So there's no doubt really that sorting through a loved one's belongings is going to be very difficult. There isn't an easy way to do it. It does take quite a lot of time usually, and there will be areas that are much more difficult than others. We would usually suggest, trying to start with the least emotional things if possible, and that's different for everyone. So it could be that you would find the clothes and shoes the easiest things to start with, but actually for someone else that might be the hardest thing. It may be that you remember the person wearing those clothes, and so that you can't deal with those until right at the end. But slowly work your way through the easiest stuff. Maybe paperwork's easy because it's not emotional. It is very time consuming though. I say paperwork takes a really long time. The longest category of items to sort is paperwork, definitely. But yeah, it might be that because there's not so much emotional attachment, that might be a good place to start. And is it that knowing where something's going and knowing it's going to a good home, does that make it an easier category? So if you know that you're sending books to a local college, does that make it easier for them to let go of them because you know where they're going and they're gonna do a good job for somebody, for the next generation of, whatever it is that those study books are about. That can sometimes help in the process. But yeah, start with the easiest things that you possibly can, really. Maybe it's the pots and pans, maybe that can be good. I've just taken stuff recently to a community centre where when people are sort of being rehoused or resettled, and they get given a flat but they've got nothing else. So all those homeware type things can be really helpful to people to get started in their new home, and that's a really kind of lovely legacy as well, that you're giving somebody a fresh start. So hopefully you can maybe start thinking about what are those easier categories and save the emotional stuff till to do at the end. And it may be, I definitely know people who have got to the last bit of emotional stuff and then said, right, I can't actually do that now. That's the stuff that I'm going to stick in the loft until I'm ready. I've done everything I can, but I can't do everything, and that's okay. You are not a failure if you can't get all of this done straight away or in a certain order, or as logically as somebody else might do it. you know, it's just a case of doing what you can as well as you can for you, and so that you feel okay about it. And remember that there is support available if you need it. You know, it might be that you can ask family and friends, it might be that you can call in a professional, but you don't have to do it on your own. You know, there are people who can help you. And I think that's everything from me, and hopefully you've got some questions. Oh, just looking in the chat there, yeah, the Buy Nothing groups, yeah. So there's often groups in the local area that are kind of, we've got one called Acts of Kindness, where people give away things. Sometimes you can do like a, you know, yard sale type setup. I've seen people do that as well.
We've got a question from the live stream, Lisa. Someone was asking for some tips. Have you got any tips for a situation where perhaps family members are disagreeing about kind of who keeps what, or there's kind of disagreement over what to keep, what to get rid of? Like, yeah, have you got any tips on how you might deal with that situation?
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? And it's part of it is about the communication, I think, and remembering that everybody's grieving in their own way. So people, you know, even the people we love, they might not be their best, and might not be acting in the way that you would normally expect them to. So I guess a level of sort of forgiveness and acceptance, and trying to communicate and understand each other in the best way possible. In practical terms, it's really hard. So it could be that there's, you know, you could be saying that these items are more special to me because, you know, I was on that holiday with my parent, and so those are kind of my memories together with them. You weren't there. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's about value. So, you know, unfortunately, finances and value do come into it, especially with family disagreements quite often, is, well, if you're taking those, you know, items, those are worth a lot more than these. So how are we going to work that out? Could it be kind of a financial arrangement if it has to be that way, you know, that you'd almost buy part of some items so that the whole family felt there was a fair spread of anything that's valuable. It could be, you know, it might be that you need someone else to come in and help. So maybe going to mediation and having sort of a professional help support the conversation might be useful. But it's not going to be, there isn't an easy, you know, solution. This is how you do it and you'll work it out. It's very much about that communication and trying to see where each other are coming from, even when it's very difficult.
Brilliant, thank you. Got any other questions at all? Feel free to sort of speak or pop it in the chat if you'd rather, and I can read it out to Lisa.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Looks like I've probably talked so much that there isn't anything else to ask.
I just wanted to say that I saw a post, I think it was in the community a while ago, that someone had stitched together. I think it was like some of their dad's shirts, like make a cushion. So kind of a nice way to kind of use items without keeping them individually, kind of, you know, something to be useful. Have you come across any other like creative ways to kind of, you know, repurpose items or kind of keep things that, you know, don't take up too much space in the home?
Yeah, that's a lovely one, actually. Yeah, I've seen people make cushions with, like, you know, granddad's dressing gown, that kind of thing, and also teddy bears. So people take, you know, a little patch from all the different items and have them sewn into a teddy bear. And one of my ladies, actually, she's doing it herself for all the grandchildren. And so, yeah, she's made like 5 bears, so they've all got one each. And so they've all got their memory of granddad. So that's really sweet. Yeah. And I've just noticed there's a question there in the chat about an American alternative. So yeah, they're called NAPO, NAPO, National Association, I think, for Productivity and Professional Organising, I think it is. But they're huge in America. Professional organising support has been around a lot longer in America than it has in the UK. So they have lots of members and like local groups and things. So yeah, in fact, there's lots of organisations all over the world. So whatever country you're in, there is in Professional Organisers Canada. I know there's in Italy, France, the Netherlands, lots of different organisations. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have support, and that's why I'm saying to you, don't feel shame in asking for help, because everybody needs some support sometimes, and this is difficult thing to go through. Oh, lovely. Thanks, Emily.
Brilliant. Have we got any more questions at all?
I like it.
I wonder if we could, in the future, maybe do like one of these meetings, but where we're all purposefully looking at or getting rid of or sorting through one thing. Because I was like, I'm going to come here and I'm going to sort through stuff, which is actually what I've done. I've been walking around while I'm listening to you, like getting rid of things and putting things in boxes. So it's good, but I'm like, oh, I really need, like you said, like someone to just be with me. I actually had a friend who was working in the garden, and while she was working in the garden, I was sorting through clothes, and then I told her to come in so she could look at some clothes that she might like, and that helped me to get rid of things. And then we loaded the car with some clothes. But it really is like, I can't do it by myself. I do what do you call it? Turning. I just move things from place to place, put them in different boxes. I think I'm going to do this, and then it doesn't happen. And so I just like shove them all in one box and just sort it out later. And it's just churning, tired of churning. So I would love like, I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant, Arlene, and a great suggestion. So people will often have, yeah, like an accountability partner. And in fact, the example you've used, I have a client actually where it's a lot of emotional stuff for her, and she doesn't want me in that space. And so I do some gardening for her, and she will sort the stuff out. And then every now and again, she'll come out and talk about what she's doing and how she's feeling. But it just she's in control then of what she's doing. But she does it for 3 hours because that's how long I'm there for, and she doesn't stop and go and do something else or go out. So yeah, maybe you have a friend or even online. So I know that there are groups sometimes that, yeah, meet on Zoom and say, right, in this hour, I'm going to sort my bookshelf out, just because I can see one behind you. And then that's what you do for that time. And everyone's just really positive and really supportive of each other to be doing that. You know, there's no negativity in that room because everyone is there just to kind of try and get another step forward. So that's a lovely idea, actually. And it doesn't have to be like tons of stuff. It can just be a small, just a thing that you don't want to do. You know, that might be just one little pile of paperwork, but you just really don't want to do it. But when you've got Arlene on Zoom with you, you will. And so, yeah, that's great.
Well, I'd love to create that, Emma. I don't know if you guys can create that, but I would love like just a sorting party, 1 hour, and get together. Maybe it's even a consistent, like every Thursday, you know, something like that. We just spend an hour moving forward through something, doing exactly what you said, the thing you don't want to do, where someone's in their Zoom room with you and you just do that thing for an hour. Yeah. I'd come.
Yeah. Emma, that's a brilliant idea. I hope you're going to do that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I was sort of writing notes as
Yeah,
yeah, we can definitely try and organise something like that on the community. Yeah, I'll definitely suggest that one to everyone, but I'm sure that'll be well received. Yeah, definitely.
Lovely. Okay.
Shall I show you what I accomplished just so you can see what happened?
Yes, please.
This is my desk. I should have shown you before. It was full. It actually, this desk closes, but it hasn't been able to close for quite some time. So there, I just took away
amazing.
all the things and put them in the garbage or the recycling or in the giveaway box.
Fantastic. And
where they belong.
Arlene, your desk is now tidier than mine is, so now I'm a bit jealous.
The lid, it's the lid that does it all.
I need a lid. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Brilliant. Have we got any last questions before we head off?
I wonder if all this, because all the things you said were so valuable, but I'm sure I won't remember them. I'm wondering if there's will these be like transcribed, or is there like a list? Like, because it literally was like these are all the things you could do, and I won't remember them all. What, is there a way of, I don't know, recording them or transcribing your talk?
Yeah, I'll post the recording of this session in the community probably tomorrow. And I think we can also get the transcription as well. I'll double check for you, but yeah, we'll definitely post the video for you to go back to and yeah, rewatch when you need it.
Yeah, I think Zoom does let you do the text. Yeah, so you should be all right, hopefully. Also, if you want, there are some blogs on my website, Arlene, which I haven't updated for a while, I must admit, but there are some on there with some practical sort of ideas and things as well to have a think about.
Brilliant. And yeah, I've popped your website in the chat there, Lisa, so everyone should be able to see that.
That's what I just noticed, you've done that. So that's and there is some things on there, yeah. But maybe you'll prompt me now, Arlene. Maybe I'll do an updated blog now with what I've talked about today.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, I think maybe we'll wrap up there then. But yeah, thank you so much, Lisa, for those wonderful tips. Yeah, I'm also feeling quite inspired to go and declutter some bits now. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us this evening. I hope you found that helpful and hopefully see you at another event very soon.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.